Hello guys, welcome. I'm Xiao and today we'll be talking about calculation. So I think everybody who play chess have been hearing about calculation concepts, and with your non-chess friends, it's always good to talk about thinking ahead, looking ahead, and calculate our today geopolitical stuff, miscalculation. So chess definitely has a lot of miscalculations. Fortunately for us, it's a fun game rather than something much more intense. So yeah, today we'll be talking about calculation for different situations, and I'll break it down into two parts. Where the first part is more for the slightly newer players, less experienced players, where there are some basic questions we want to ask while calculating and while practicing calculation. And then later on we get to the little bit more detailed calculation exercise, how to look ahead, how to think about all the possibilities while we're calculating. One of the reasons I brought up this topic, because from as a new player up to grandmaster level, like I'm a 2300 player, and there are a lot of times that I need to continue to improve calculation from different aspects. So calculation is really important for everybody, not just some pattern like a simple fork that's basic for 600, but once you get to 1200, it becomes automatic. Okay, so let's start with this one. We won't go over the solution yet. I would say this puzzle is one of those, for a majority of the audience here, is if you know, you know. But if you don't know, you need some time to figure it out. That's okay. But this is one of those examples that you have to calculate precisely. Any move that you miscalculate, the results change completely. Okay, so we'll come back to this at the either at the end or as we get to the end. We'll go over this puzzle in more details. Let me actually just get a sense. Who have seen this puzzle before? Okay, and do you all know the answer? Okay, so Herman, I'll get you to discuss it later on. All right, so let's start with for the newer players. So one of the first things that is important when you're playing, when you're just starting, is a lot of times we like to say, hey, this move looks good for me. But what's actually missing is you're not looking at opponent's next move. That's very important. And that's the foundation of calculation. You want to think ahead what your opponent will do, and also what is your opponent's threat before you make the move. All right, so let's have somebody, let's say the under 800, under 600 group. Just start with the first question: what are the captures available on this puzzle? Anybody? You can just shout it out.
Rook takes position.
Okay, and what's another capture that's on the board?
Knight takes position.
Okay, so this is what I call a counting problem, where you're counting how many attackers and how many defenders. So in a normal situation, you have 2 attackers, 1 defender. You want to make a capture. Generally, you want to capture with the less valuable piece first. Okay, let's stay with you, Eddie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Eddie, how would you make the capture in this situation? We have both.
Probably with the rook.
Okay, why?
Because if you don't do a check on the next move, then you do get checkmated. He can ignore it and just not recapture, and you can play. I think it's A1, rook to A1.
All right.
Then you can get checkmated.
Yeah. So you're looking ahead. You're looking at opponent's next move. If knight takes the bishop, normally this is a good move, but there is a back rank mate. And okay, this is what I call a garbage block. Black takes, and then the game is over. All right. So you're looking ahead and you realize there is a back ring problem. And this is a common checkmate pattern. So pattern is the first thing you want to practice, but as you start building up that pattern toolbox in your head, is the calculation that matters. Okay, so as Eddie mentioned, rook e8, we're giving a check. That is the safe way to capture. We win the bishop, and we're not getting mated. Okay, let's do a couple more. Somebody else does, say, under 800. Anybody want to give it a try? So Chris and Herman, you guys, I know you guys know this. Let's start with the easy question first. What are the captures available?
Capture the bishop 2 ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can
Okay,
capture the
and
bishop
your
2
name?
ways. Charlie.
Charlie, all right. Yeah.
I mean, I just immediately look for captures, and the next thing that I'm thinking of is also checks. I mean, the first
Okay.
thing I looked at when I looked at this is if you move your queen to the end of the board, is that checkmate? It's not.
Yep.
Because the king has a square to get away from. Then I thought, is there any way for me to easily take away that square? Not really, so I'd probably just take the bishop.
Okay, so how many ways we have to capture the bishop?
But then I also immediately saw something else. But yeah, how many ways do we have to capture the bishop? We have 2 ways to capture the bishop.
Yeah.
But now the next thing that immediately came into my head is I don't want to get back rank checkmated. And so I'm thinking, okay, so it's actually fine, but I would take the bishop with my queen.
Yes. All right. So your thinking process is the correct one. Right now let's just focus on the capture. The check is another thing, but that's something we'll come back to later. But just on the 2 captures between the queen capture the bishop and knight captures bishop, we want to capture with the queen because the back ring is not a problem. The knight can block. Right? Versus if we capture with the knight, then the back ring is a problem. Again, just a garbage block, but black will take the queen and the game's over. Okay, so yeah, I mean, back ring is a pattern, back ring checkmate is a pattern, and then you want to use those patterns and think ahead on what your opponent will do. Okay, let's do one more, and then I think we can go to the stronger group. Let's do this one. So, I mean, the stronger group can also answer this, but let's maybe just call it 30 seconds to everybody. So, white to move. Let's start with captures. How many ways are there to capture? And then which one is the correct way to do it?
So there's 2 ways to capture.
2 ways to capture, okay. Since you mentioned it, which piece?
I think I would capture the.
No, one second. Before we get there, just what piece to capture?
The rook and the queen can capture the bishop.
Okay, yeah, so the bishop is the target, and right now the queen and the rook can capture. So let's do 30 seconds for everybody, and then Eddie, we'll let you answer in 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not very sure if mine is
Oh,
right.
okay, this is the part you want to calculate.
Yeah.
I think it will. So I'm going to think ahead. How should you capture based on black's response?
What was black's last, or white's last move?
It's white's turn right now.
Oh, it's white's
Yeah,
turn.
and okay, we highlighted the bishop. White is attacking twice, black is defending once. How should we capture for white?
Queen takes bishop.
Okay. Eddie?
I think the rook should take it.
Okay, we have some disagreement. Who votes for queen takes? Okay, we got a few. Who votes for rook takes? Okay, so rook takes. What's the reason?
I don't like that those two pawns are connected really far up the board, so I kind of want to have my queen still. To
Okay.
deal with that easier. That's my reason.
Okay, all right. Actually, let me hear a couple more. Rook takes. What's the reason?
Well, no, I didn't choose rook takes, but originally I was on the fence
Yeah.
because I hadn't calculated it. I was
Yeah.
just thinking about the end game, and I was like, is this good? And then I slowed down because I was like, this is about calculation. And
Yeah.
I saw you have to take with the queen.
Okay. All right. So that's Charlie brought up a good point, and actually that's related to what Eddie mentioned. And this is something for new players. We like to think a lot of conceptual ideas, which is helpful, but a lot of time is misplaced. The calculation is always the most important thing. Concrete and specific variations is the most important thing in chess. What Eddie was saying is he thought those two pawns are potentially strong, and he wants to keep the queen. Conceptually, that's a good idea, but the problem is we need to calculate what happens after rook f6. Charlie, what will black do?
Black will play pawn e4.
I think you got it. Wrong
and that-
notation though.
Hmm? Oh.
Not this is e4.
Oh wait, yeah. Sorry. Pawn d4.
D4.
Yeah, and that'll disconnect our queen from the rook and
Yeah.
attack both of them at the same time.
Yes. So there is a tactics. This is, we can call it remove the guard, interference, whatnot. But basically, black is having a double attack, attacking the queen, and black's queen is attacking the rook, and there's no way for white to save the rook, or at least save the rook or the queen. So this is the part that where the conceptual stuff doesn't matter as much. It's only calculation that matters. Right here. Okay?
So,
Yeah.
if we did take with queen, you're forcing queen takes queen.
Well, not forcing. So okay, that might be another topic, but okay,
So you're still up
you're up bishop for a couple pawns.
pawns, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's equal at that point.
What do we mean equal?
So if queen takes,
Yeah.
and if you consider the two middle pawns,
Yeah.
they have central.
So okay, black has 2 pawns for a bishop,
Yeah.
right? So just the basics. White is up by 1 point, and then generally a piece is bigger than 2 pawns. And okay, let me just put as a aside. I would say everybody probably know that bishop is 3 points, right? Pawn is 1 point. That's the basic way of doing the point system. There are some more nuance as you get stronger, but let's just use the simplified version. Bishop 3 points, pawn 1 point, so you can call 3 pawns equal to a bishop. But actually, usually that's not the case. More often is in the middle game or earlier, a bishop is greater than 3 pawns. Again, this is rule of thumb, not, we have to be more specific on each position. But in the in-game, a 3 pawn may be more powerful, more likely to be more powerful than a bishop, because potentially passed pawns getting stronger than a piece. Okay. All right, but Sanjay, back to you. So right here we have bishop for 2 pawns, and it's not too hard to blockade them. If it's white's turn again, just put the rook here, and this pawn is gone. Of course, what black should play, thinking ahead, thinking that white's threat is rook d6. Black should play rook d8 to prevent that. Okay, here I can play c3, and if you play d4, a few suggestions earlier, is, afraid of the pass pawn, just play c3, and the pass pawn is less powerful. Right. Okay, all right, let's look at one more threats, and then we'll get to some real calculation routines. All right, let's look at this one. So earlier we talked about looking at opponent's next move. Let's also look at opponent's threats. Okay, so right here, if white takes on a7, what are some threats black can make?
I guess queen to, can't read which one of these controls. I think it's the F5. F5.
You mean here?
Yeah.
Okay, g5.
Oh, G5.
Okay, that is a good threat. What else?
Queen D5.
Okay. All right, let's actually, so both of those are the correct threat. You're going after the white's king. All right, let's actually use this opportunity to calculate. How would black continue? What are the defenses for white?
So against Queen G5, white could possibly, no. I was thinking G3, but I don't think that's good.
Why not?
They could, that stops the movement, maybe, yeah. But there's also Rook F2.
Okay. So all right, this is something we'll talk about in a moment. Now you're looking at candidate moves, or here for white is defensive possibilities, right? G3 is one possibility, Rook F2 is a possibility. What else?
King to H1.
Does that solve the problem?
It doesn't solve it. No.
Then King H1, Queen G2 is still mate.
Yeah.
Right. There is one other way against Queen G5.
Just Queen B7.
Yes, Queen B7 to protect G2. Right. Okay, let's actually pause there for a moment. Let's look at Queen D5. How many ways are there to stop the mate from the Queen D5 threat on G2? Okay, so Rook F3 is one. What else?
Rook F2.
Rook F2. Yeah. All right. Let's actually calculate this one. Let's start with Rook F2. And here, for a lot of new players, what you should ask, and even for the stronger players here, every move search. So the way we think about candidate moves is ask what are the capture, check, and attack that's available. So let's start with Rook F2. What are the captures for black?
Take the rook.
Take the rook. Okay. Keep calculating.
Take the rook, then we have to take back with our king.
Yeah.
And then they can fork us on A2.
Okay, that works.
And then there's no way for us to stop that. We'd have to lose our rook, I think.
Yes. All right.
Maybe get mated.
So Queen D5, Rook F2 to stop the mate. Black can trade the rooks. And then here Queen E2 works. Queen F5 is another possibility. Basically black wins the rook for free. Okay. All right. So we got that variation taken care of. We're kind of already getting into the candidate move, the calculation routine, but I'll make it more structured from the next couple puzzles. Queen D5. The other variation we're looking at, Rook F3. How can black continue then? Making threats.
Queen A2.
Yeah, same thing. And it's a double attack. The battery on the G2 pawn, and which goes after the king, and then the B1 rook. is unprotected. White has no good way to defend. Okay, so when you're thinking before each move, you want to ask the question: what are your opponent's threats, and what are your opponent's next moves? Okay, let's do one more here. This one is a good sequence. Here we are just calculating one variation. And then in the next one, I'll start talking about we have to calculate multiple variations. Okay, the question for this puzzle is it a good idea to play bishop h7?
Sure.
Did you calculate?
I can see one.
You saw the pattern.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good sign. But we're focused on calculation here. So let me ask this question to the under 600, under 800 group. Does anybody, this group, do you guys know what pattern this is? Well, yeah, this is backbreaking, but there is a tactic pattern on this setup. Have you seen this?
Is it discovery?
Yes, yes, discovery attack. Right? So discovery attack is a little bit similar to pin, except the piece in the middle is your piece. You can move that piece to do something, and then you win the unprotected piece from your opponent. Okay, so this is discovery attack setup. And if the rook was a queen, then yeah, absolutely we'll play bishop h7. All right, now given it's a rook, let's calculate what happens after bishop h7. Maybe let's do about 30 seconds. Herman, you got this yet? Still thinking? Okay, Herman, you ready?
For White's move?
Should we play bishop h7?
If bishop takes h7, king takes h7, and queen takes rook on d8 with check, queen should enter.
It's not check.
What bishop takes h7?
Bishop takes rooks is not check.
Queen takes.
I think you just said check.
Oh, I said
Yeah, maybe
queen
you
takes
just-
rook.
Queen
Yeah,
takes
rook.
yeah,
I said-
queen,
I said it
yeah.
wrong,
That's
wrong,
what.
I said that.
Yeah, that's my apologies. Queen
Okay,
takes
so
rook,
yeah, queen takes rook is now check.
And queen has to interpose in order to save the knight on e8, and I believe queen takes e8 and knight takes e8. But,
So I like White's position there.
mhm.
Based on your suggestion, I'll take on h7 and win your rook. So basically trade my bishop for your rook and then trade queens.
Yes, you'd be up the
I'll take that
exchange.
for White. Yeah.
So what I saw is like I think you can do it because you take on h7 with the bishop, right? If knight takes, then queen takes, d8 is check, right? So
Yeah.
we're fine.
Okay.
But if king takes, we take. It's not check.
Yeah.
They can go bishop b7, threatening checkmate and our queen.
Yeah.
But we can go back to d3, checking the king on h7, and then probably play like f3, and I think we're fine.
But there's a hanging piece though, right? Knight.
Well, yeah, but then we get checkmate if we take it. Because
Well,
they're threatening
the-
checkmate on g6.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you got the right idea, yes. So the tricky part is black actually has a counter discovery attack. The rook on the queen and the checkmate threat.
Ooh.
But white does have a way to get back queen d3 to give a check. I mean, this position is a little bit complicated. So I mean, white is up in exchange, but black has some compensation even after this. But yeah, you're right. At least white is not getting mated or losing a queen. I think actually there might be something else. I think yeah, something like just moving the knight. This is a little bit complicated, but the main thing is queen d3 is actually fun. There's a counter attack, but then here white gives a check, and okay, at least white is not getting anything. So yeah, I mean, at a higher level, bishop h7 is fine. You know, there might be some more details we need to check into in the calculation there. Okay, so actually using that example, let's go to the calculation routine, you know, for the more experienced players. So as you get stronger, you know, at the beginning, you just want to ask the question, what's the opponent's next move, what's the opponent's threats? And then as you get stronger, you still want to ask those questions, but the calculation routine become more complex. We want to calculate in a way where we're looking at multiple possibilities. One thing for many of the players, and even for stronger players, that, you know, miscalculations happen is because we miss one of opponent's response. We're seeing the obvious responses, but we're not seeing all of the possibilities. So what I call this for calculation is you want to think both the number of possibilities, possible responses, as well as a few moves in each variation. Most of the time, new players like to focus on, if I play this, they play that, and they just stay in one variation. What I actually like to do is, when you're calculating, when you think, I'll make this move, what are all the possible responses? That way it's registered in our mind that we're not forgetting. There are more than one possibility, okay? This is also a famous puzzle. Anybody know the first move? Go ahead, Herman.
Rook to A8, I believe.
Okay.
Is there's no good move for queen.
Okay, we'll get to that part. So first, the basic question, Rook A8 attacking the queen for the under 800 group. What happens if the queen takes?
You pin the queen with check bishop. Okay.
You guys see that? Yeah, skewer. So Rook A8,
Or skewer.
Queen A8, then Bishop F3 skewers the king and the queen. So skewer is what, you know, this kebab. The stick on the kebab is called a skewer, and it fits perfectly for chess. All right. So Rook A8, the queen cannot take. All right. Now let's go to the the routine discussion. Queen A8 is one possibility. We already got that taken care of. What are other ways for the queen to get out of danger? Go ahead, Herm.
Queen to A7.
H7?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if queen H7.
One second. All right. This is what I want you to start practicing, building this habit. Look, search for all the possibilities first, before you think about how you want to respond to each. So yeah, we'll come back to you. Go ahead.
The first
What
thing
else?
that I think of is just the directions the queen can move. I'm like, well, it doesn't help to move horizontally at all.
Yeah.
Can't go up and down. So there's just the two downward diagonals. And as Herman said, there's only one move on that side, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves on the other side.
Okay.
And I can, of those 7 moves total, I can immediately rule out 2 of them, because 2 of them, the queen is just walking straight into obvious danger on F7 and B3.
Yeah. So let me highlight the obvious ones, obvious wrong ones in red.
And now I only have 5 things to calculate.
Okay, so let's just get the squares out. So what are the squares?
Oh, so the squares are the diagonal from A to.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
So just E6, D5, C4, and A2.
Yes.
So the red are, at least for the moment, is safe, right? And
Red
then,
is safe.
no, sorry, the green at the moment is safe. The red immediately is not safe. Everybody see that? Okay, all right, so let's get rid of the red ones. All right, so let's focus on the green ones. We already covered queen A8, then bishop F3. Let's have somebody answer what to do after queen d5. Basically, same idea. You want to give it a shot? What happens? So I'll tell you after queen a8, play bishop f3. What happens after queen d5?
Same thing.
Same thing, right? That would be a pin. Okay, so we got d5 and a8 taken care of. I guess let me highlight d5 and a8 in blue. Okay, Herman, what happens after bishop queen h7?
If queen h7, decoy deflection on b6. If queen takes, then rook to a6. Check.
So bishop g6 attacking the queen. The queen has nowhere to go except for capturing the bishop. Then rook a6. So I'll show that here. Queen h7, bishop g6. The queen cannot go back to the 8th ring. There's the rook covering everywhere. Queen takes, and then we have another screw. Win the queen. Okay. All right. So after rook a8, we covered h7, d5, a8. So now we need to continue with e6, c4, and a2. Let's get some of the easier ones taken care of.
Let me see, what is it? E6, we have a skewer on
Yeah.
A6, and
Yeah.
on C4 we have a skewer on C8.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just show it on the screen. Queen e6, then rook a6 skewer. Queen c4, rook c8 skewer. Okay. So what's left is queen a2. Let's focus here. So what to do after queen a2? Not sure yet?
No, I know. I'm giving someone else.
Okay.
I think I got it. If
Yeah, go
someone
ahead.
else wants to get it. So if they go on A2, we take the pawn,
Okay.
and let me see. I don't think they have anywhere they can go except for. Isn't the only square G8? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the only square is G8. So when they go back to G8, we attack the queen on A8 again, and then they have nowhere left to go except for H7, and then the same trick with the bishop.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed there's one other square. Nope, never mind. No, that's right. I agree.
So the queen is gone, pretty much.
Yeah.
No matter where.
Yeah, but that's because we calculated everything. You don't want to play rook a8 and just say, let's hope they take my rook. In fact, that's what I call hope chess. You don't want to play a hope chess where you play a move. If your opponent play a bad move, you win. But if they play a good move, you cry. You don't want to do that, right? So here, yeah, because we are able to calculate everything. Queen a2 does not work either. Yeah, go ahead.
If they capture the pawn with the rook,
Yeah.
and if our queen is on A2,
Here?
couldn't we just capture the rook?
Okay, what can white do here?
Check.
Oh, it's
Yeah, go ahead.
it would be a check, and the king would have to move and capture the queen.
Yeah, so the skewer on e8. Right. Yeah, and then just show it to the room after queen g8. This time we get the rook back to a8, and now there's no more a2 for the queen. All the other ones is the same as the last one. Right? Make sense? Okay, so to summarize this one and start building this habit, look at all of your opponent's responses. Of course, this is a forced variation. There are times that, unforced, that's another topic. We'll talk about that later. But for today's discussion, when you're looking at, mostly it's the puzzles. Look at, when you see a good move, try to search your opponent's multiple possibilities, multiple responses, and then calculate each one. That way you can avoid missing, I missed that move from our opponent. Because one of the typical things I see from students is you see a response and then you go 5 moves deeper. And then you forgot there's a simple move that just make your move not work so well.
What if they make a move you didn't expect?
Well, again, it depends on the situation. That might be a psychological thing. But in terms of forced variation, you should see all the possibilities. Yeah. And if it's a forced variation and you miss the move, you might need to stand up, take a walk to clear your head, to make sure you regroup if needed. Okay, let's look at one more. Okay, this one should be slightly easier, but it is a good calculation exercise. And again, we want to look at all of your opponent's possibilities and also think deep in each one. And it's not that deep. Each variation has 2 or 3 moves. So black's pawn is getting ready to promote. How should white prepare and plan for that? So let's give a minute or so, right, for the round to calculate. Calculating first. CPU is running.
Can we say the answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's the white king to h3.
Okay. What did you calculate?
If they play, if they get a queen there, if the pawn makes a queen, there should be a stalemate, because you can't take the pawn. The bishop wants to score h4, and the king's not in check.
Yeah.
So I think that's a stalemate.
Okay.
They could get a knight, and
Is what?
they could get a knight.
Yes.
Check.
Yes.
And
It's not forcing.
Yeah, we rely on.
All right, let's come back to that.
This-
So we have promoting to a queen. All right, that's stalemate. Okay, we can stop there for that one. Promoting to a knight. What else?
If they do any other move, there's no legal move for black that protects the pawn.
Yes.
So our next response, if they make any other move, is just to take the pawn with our king.
That's true. So yeah, we don't have to list out all of that, but we have to list out all of the promotion possibilities.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we got a queen,
Could be a
knight.
bishop.
What else?
The bishop.
It could be a rook. 'Cause,
Bishop or rook. What happens if it promotes to a rook?
Then our king would move to b3, and they could move the rook to g2, and it's
Wait 1 second. So the king goes to h3 here, and if black promotes to a rook,
Yeah.
what happens?
it's a check, but it's not checkmate.
no, it's
It's a stalemate.
It's not a check, so it is stalemate. So promoting to a queen and rook is the same, right? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
If they make a bishop, there's no checkmate with the 2 bishops because they're both dark square bishops.
Yeah. So this one, for those of you who are a little bit new, 2 bishops can checkmate if they're on different colors. So 2 bishops can checkmate the king. But if it's the same color bishop, literally they're just this 1 bishop. Right? This bishop, I give you 1,000 moves, can you get to e2? And neither of the bishop can give a check if the king stays on the light square. So essentially, this is 1 bishop, and you will not be able to check it. Okay. What's left?
There's knight, which is the only way they could ever really hope to get checkmate.
Yeah.
If they check with the knight, we go to g2, and their only safe square is e2, and then we have a fork on c1.
F1.
F1.
Yes. You see that, Henry? Yes. So after g1 knight, this is the only hope with bishop and knight checkmate. King g2. Only move right now is knight e2, and then king f1 fork. And white makes a draw from a desperate situation. Yeah. And again, here we're calculating all of the possibilities, and we realize we took care of everything. Okay. Let's see. Maybe let's come back to this one. Actually, yeah. Let's do this now, and then we'll go to the pawn in game to wrap it up. Okay. So yeah, this will get a little bit intense, but just calculate. So first search, what white wants to do, and then look at black's defenses, and then calculate. Look at all of black's responses, and then calculate. Hopefully each one to win for white. So white to move and win in this puzzle. So let's take 30 seconds, just talk about some, in general, how I look at a puzzle. What is the material count right now?
2 pawns for the knight versus a pawn and bishop.
Yeah, so what's the difference?
A pawn.
White is up a pawn. Right? So the way I, typically I tell students, and even when I'm doing a puzzle, I want to look at the material count and then king safety. Material count just to see what is the material difference. It could be even, it could be one side up a lot of materials, or one side down a lot of material, trying to checkmate. So based on what is the material difference, we are deciding what to look after. And then king safety is the other one, although this one is an in-game, so we don't have to worry about king safety as much. Okay, so white is up a pawn. And certainly white, it's white to win, white to move and win. So what is something that we want to accomplish with this actual pawn?
The which pawn? The pawn on the B file or the D file? If it's D file, then it's pawn promotion.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. But I think the way you described it wasn't the best idea. It's not about which pawn. It's about the game, right? You're right that this is the difference maker, right? We don't need to worry about this. We want to keep this pawn, because if we lose this pawn and this pawn trade, or the bishop trades for this pawn, then it's going to be a draw. So we want to keep this pawn, but this is the difference maker. Right? So I guess, maybe we're just speaking
Yeah.
but you got the idea. We want to get this pawn to basically trade this passed pawn for the bishop. Okay, Chris?
Is it b4?
Okay, what did you calculate?
I don't see the end of it, but that traps the king in there, and the king has to take a really long route to get out of there.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. We'll come back.
Knight to b5.
B5, okay, another idea. Charlie?
Oh, I was gonna say, we can't push the pawn on the D file, because after king C7, I don't think any of our responses, we have no way to defend the pawn.
Okay, good.
And we
So
also
you're
have
looking
no
at
way to
opponent's
defend.
next move. Good.
So I sort of ruled out that pawn.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I thought about moving our king, but I think that just helps black.
Alright, this is the conceptual thing. Move
Yeah.
the king to where?
I guess when I thought about it from a conceptual perspective, the only move that I decided to calculate was moving the king one closer to the bishop.
Okay,
Uh,
so calculate that. We'll
and
come back to
after
that.
after I calculated that,
Yeah.
I thought the bishop doesn't have many places left to go. It would have to go to, well, the only places where it doesn't get captured, it doesn't get captured on A2 immediately, but
Yeah.
it's trapped there, and then we can go closer and then capture it the next turn, potentially. I think it's trapped there. Once again, I didn't. fully
Okay, so
calculate it.
let's do this. Let's calculate. Well, yeah, I do
Yeah.
quickly.
I tried thinking to just run the king up the dark squares and get close to the knight and the pawn, because the black king, I feel like it doesn't really have many moves to stop the pawn. Like if you push the pawn now, he's gonna stop it.
Okay, so actually that's a similar discussion with b4 and knight b5. Let's stay with king c1 for a moment. All right. So Charlie, let's first going back to our routine.
Yeah.
What are all the possible responses for black?
All of the possible responses are
All the reasonable ones.
Yeah. Pawn can move, king move, loses the game because we push the other pawn. So I'm pretty sure it has to be a bishop move.
Yeah.
And then the reasonable responses are A2, at least they seem reasonable at
Yeah.
first. A2, D4,
D3. Yeah.
D3, E4,
Yeah.
G6, and H7.
Yes.
And of those, I thought that G6 was the one that I was immediately the most scared of, because it
okay.
looks like it can wrap around to one of the squares that the pawn is going to try to move to. And also, I'm just thinking if the bishop was on E8, it would sort of see both the path of, like, it would see the path of both of our pawns, and that might be a bad thing.
Okay.
Obviously, that's like a little bit conceptual, but
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't do any more specific calculation on each
Okay.
of these.
So let's start calculating. So Charlie, let's just stay with you for the first one. What happens after bishop A2?
I didn't look through every single move, but the idea that I had was just king B2, because king B2 traps the bishop. There might be some move like black plays king C5 and counterattacks our knight.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really work because we can just push the pawn
Yeah.
if they move their king. And then if they sacrifice the bishop for the knight, I think that will also work out for us because the king can, right now, the black king can't get closer to our pawn, and then we would be able to walk our king up once the bishop is gone. And then I don't think there's any other moves that they can really do here.
Yeah, and I think you're overthinking a little bit. Just bishop A2, just king B2, trap the bishop, and okay. First of all, actually, black cannot win this pawn, but even if black can win the pawn, just make sure. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. I take that back. We do need to make sure that we're not losing D6,
Yeah.
because if we are losing D6, black can just sacrifice the bishop and then pick up the pawn. But here it doesn't work because the king cannot attack D6. Only square is C5. We have D7.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's show it to on the board. Here, the bishop is trapped. Right? So
And the king's only moves would leave the square of the pawn.
yes, and the only way to attack the D6 pawn does not work because then the pass pawn here is unstoppable. Okay, so we took care of bishop A2. Let's start with bishop H7. How can white continue to push and make progress.
I'm pretty sure we can just push the D pawn.
Okay? Calculate.
Because if they attack it with their king,
Yeah.
we can defend the promotion square with the knight, and when they take the pawn, which they're forced to, we deliver a fork on C8.
On F8.
F8.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me show that to the group. Bishop H7. White will play D7, getting ready to promote. King C7 to stop it. But here white has knight E6. King D7 and then knight F8. Wins the bishop and still have the pawn. Okay. All right. We took care of bishop H7. Now let's look at bishop G6.
It's the same exact thing.
It's the same thing.
Same moves from us.
So whatever your original thought, that didn't matter. It's calculation that matters. So just to show it on the board, bishop G6, still same idea. D7, King C7, knight E6, King D7, knight F8. Fork wins the bishop, still have the pawn. Okay. All right. We got two more. Bishop D3.
To attack the bishop again.
Actually, looking at opponent's next move, if you play King D2, you actually give black a chance to make a draw. Because I have bishop F1. And then with the plan to go to H3. I'll give a hint. Okay, Herman?
If pawn to, yeah, you push the pawn up, and then the king goes after it, you play knight to, I can't see the letters,
E6.
E6,
Yeah.
check, king takes, and then you play knight to C5 to fork, I believe.
Yes. So it's the same idea as the
Yeah.
last two variations, just on a different square. I'll show it on the board now. Bishop D3, D7, King C7, knight E6. Black has to take, and then we have knight C5.
And our calculation's done because that works for E4 as well.
Same idea. Yes. So bishop E4 doesn't matter. Knight C5. And that's all the variations, and white wins in every single one of them. Everything forced.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If you looked at this puzzle, so in my head, I have 4 pieces I can move. The first pieces that I immediately thought to move were the 2 pawns.
Okay.
Would you say that your instinct is to go try to find a pawn move or a knight move? Or I also looked at the knight, but those were the 3 that were like my instinct to look at. And then obviously the correct move is a king move. So I spent like a ton of time calculating what happens if I push the pawn 1 on the left.
Okay.
And I guess my point is, was there any sort of
Mechanism.
reasoning or mechanism as to which piece you would decide to calculate through with?
Yeah. So this is a very good question, and sometimes there's no clear answer. But I'll give you some things to think about. I would say, at your level, for most of the under 16, which basically covers the majority of the group, start with the more forcing moves. So, Chris mentioned B4. B4 is actually an interesting idea. Unfortunately, I'll tell you that it does not work because the bishop can go to A2. And then F7, E8. So use the bishop to stop the pawn, and there's no fork. Even though the king cannot stop the pawn anymore, but the bishop can, and white cannot push these up. So b4 doesn't quite work. Let me do one more variation before I get back to your question, Charlie. So Sanjay, knight b5. You got the idea, but actually this one is easier for black to handle than b4. What can black do after knight b5?
King C6.
King C6.
King c6. So knight b5 is really hope chess. You're hoping your opponent take and then white will queen. But black can simply play king c6. And then this pawn will be stopped, and black has basically objective black is able to draw this just by sacrificing the bishop for this one. Oh, I guess after winning this one. Okay. All right, so yeah, knight b5 doesn't work. All right, so back to the discussion with Charlie. So yeah, b4 is very interesting, but you can look at black's responses. So one way to answer your question is, number one, start with the forcing move. Focus on the capture, check, and attack. And then there are times that you don't have forceful moves, and then okay, you can put this as a candidate move. So when we say candidate move, it's both for your own moves as well as what your opponent will do. So for the majority of our discussion today, we're looking at candidate moves for our opponent. And I just call that how will your opponent respond? What's our opponent's response? That's a candidate move for our opponent. But when you're thinking, when you didn't know this is a puzzle, when you're thinking during a game, you also want to think, what are all the possibilities I have? Right? It's like when you're making a decision on what to do on Saturday or Friday night, you put the options on the table and then you decide.
So I guess my question is,
Yeah.
why would pawn b4 be considered a candidate move, but not something like knight c2?
You can consider it, but of course, which one is easier to reject?
I guess that's true. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is only one move, and it's.
Well, I mean, let's calculate. What happens after knight c2?
They just take it.
Take it and then?
And then we take back.
Yeah.
And then we can't promote our pawn. They're just gonna win the other pawn.
Yeah, so knight c2, bishop takes, king c6, black wins the pawn. Right? If something is easy to reject, you just take it off on the table. Right?
So when you're making calculations, do you consider tempo as a factor as well?
So tempo is really forced variation. Right? That's you calculate. So I think the important thing for you is take all that conceptual things off. Just calculate. And you can call it tempo, variation, whatever, but just calculate. And start with the number of possibilities and then look each one. And let me just before I rule of thumb for now for most of you, generally just look at when you're looking at opponent's response, look at as many as is possible from your opponent. That's reasonable. And then in terms of how many moves to calculate, most of the time just 2 or 3 moves. As you get stronger, the number of variation increases and then the depth also increases. But for now, most of you, just look at 3 to 5 variations that's available, and then 2 to 3 moves ahead. You don't have to go too deep than that. Okay, but you were saying.
No, I was just saying because I never considered moving the B pawn at all because
Okay.
back of my mind, it's a wasteful move. Because my goal
okay,
is
so
to-
you reject it that way.
Yeah, because my goal is to promote
Yes.
my D pawn.
Yeah.
So that would be my focus and calculate from only D pawn
Yeah. Okay.
from that perspective.
I think right now that's fine. And I would say, this puzzle is actually quite hard. So, but Chris brought up before. So he actually got the idea that b4 limits black's king's activity. That's his point. And then the problem with b4 is the bishop actually kind of get back. Charlie?
Do you think it'd be fair to say that your conceptual knowledge is what sort of lets you immediately pick which candidate moves to calculate?
There's part of that, yeah. So I've been kind of forcing everybody to do the calculation. Conceptual is helpful, but more often than not, at your current level, is your mistakes in games is because miscalculation, rather than not having enough conceptual knowledge. And this is actually a thing that somewhat differentiates adults versus kids. Because kids doesn't have all that conceptual knowledge, conceptual thoughts yet. They just want to calculate. If this variation wins, great. If it doesn't win, let me move on. But adults start thinking about life and chess, and then you start saying, if I do this, it makes intuitive sense, but you start miscalculating things. Yeah, but intuition does help, and as the stronger you get, the more refined intuition you will have. But for majority of the under 1600 group, miscalculation is the number one blunder prone opportunity. So focus on calculation and start with forceful variations. Okay, all right. Let's give those under 600 one more simple one, and then we'll finish with the king and the pawn game. What's your name?
Asher.
Asher?
Astrid.
Ashrid. All right. What are the capture possibilities for black right here?
For black.
Yes.
So you could for capturing, you could take like the pawn.
Okay, is that a good trade?
No.
No. All right. So let's look at the good capture.
You could attack the rook, or you could.
Just right now, just focus on capture. One move
The
capture.
bishop.
Okay. How many ways?
The pawn and the knight
Okay. Which is the correct way to capture?
with the pawn.
Why?
So you can protect the knight.
Yes. So you're looking ahead. If knight captures, you lose the d5 knight. Right? You capture with the pawn, everything's safe. You just want the bishop for free. Okay, one more. Let me see. Go off those. Okay, this one is slightly harder, but any of those under 800 want to give it a try? How should white capture here?
Knight takes, knight. Bishop
Okay.
takes, and then bishop takes.
Why did you choose knight takes and not bishop takes?
Because knight's being attacked. White bishop on b7.
So, okay, if bishop takes, what will black do?
They will take knight check.
Yes. So bishop take is not as safe because black takes the knight with check, and this actually is an even trade. So at the beginning, white has 2 pieces, black has 3. We are attacking this knight twice. If we take with the bishop, we actually didn't win anything. It's just an even trade. Versus if we take with the knight, we just want back the piece. Okay. All right. So let me summarize, and then we'll finish with the king and pawn. Okay. So again, thinking about opponent's next move and looking at opponent's threats, that's the number 1 level in terms of calculation. And actually, as you get stronger, it's still something you want to keep practicing. And then the deeper calculation is looking at multiple variations. That's the important thing. I want everybody to start paying attention put all the possibility on the table and then calculate a few moves in each one, rather than just looking at one variation and then stop there. Okay, let's finish with this. Maybe let's give a minute to those who have not seen it. Just get your thinking going, and then we'll have somebody who have seen it answer it. But Herman, make sure you remember all the ideas.
Chris, you know this one?
I've never seen it before, but I think I got it.
You never seen this?
Mm-hmm.
So how many seen this? Okay, a few. Okay.
I forgot the order of operation.
That's important. It's between
Absolutely.
a success surgery or bad outcome. Miscalculation is costly. Okay, Herman, let's get started.
G6.
Okay. What are the possible moves from black?
So black can take either way with the F pawn or the H pawn.
Okay, let's start with that F pawn.
So if F takes G6, you can play an H6 move.
Yeah.
And if takes, then you play pawn to F6 and it's a pass pawn.
Okay. So then let's show it on the screen. F takes, then H6, pawn breakthrough. If this pawn
Takes,
moves,
then H
we'll
takes,
take
and then it's
on
pass.
G7. If G takes H, then F6. The F pawn becomes unstoppable. Okay, and then let's go to H takes G. Let's actually just give others a chance to get this one. So how can white break through right here? Anybody else?
It's just mirrored.
Yeah.
Yeah. So F6, pawn F6.
Same idea. If this pawn takes, we take this, and G pawn promotes. If G takes F, then H pawn is unstoppable. Alright, so this is the only winning move, and I think everything else does not win for sure, but I think maybe white can draw with king b1, but yeah, black will play g6 to stop that. Okay, so it's very important. White's only move to win is g6 right here. Okay, so I'm done for now. I do have some other puzzles, so anybody who wants to stay a little bit, we can chat more. But any other general questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just curious. Like, has this type of idea ever came up in any famous games?
Like this puzzle?
Yeah, like that. Like the structure, that arrangement with the pawns, with that idea.
Oh, definitely. Maybe even this position. I'm sure it's possible. Like I had games where this is the setup and then something else traded off. Of course, it depends on where the kings are. But in general, pawn breakthrough is very common. So pass pawn and king and pawn in games. Think about this way: king and pawn in games. There's opposition, and then the other one is pawn breakthrough.
If the pawns were placed in the center, would the outcome be the same?
If the king stays here, it is. It really depends on where the kings are. Yeah, but.
Well, the pawns can never be in the center because they're taking that.
Yeah, it's less likely to happen, right? But if this is what you're saying, yeah, e6 is the same.
Or you mean
Yeah.
More of
I was
a
thinking you'd be shifting them back.
more of a general game question.
Yeah.
Let's say I don't know exactly where the king would be, but let's say the black king is a little closer to the pawns, but not close enough to stop the promotion. But kind of close enough to get with the pawn, so they have 3 pawns and versus a queen, 3 passers, and the white king is still in the corner. Could that be holdable for black? Or
Yeah, it really depends on the situation, but what you're getting to is the king in a box, in a square, right? King in a square. So yeah, your number 1 job is to stop the pawn from promoting. If you can stop, it's less likely that the pawns can deal with the queen. Usually the queen can deal with the pawn.
But I mean, if like you had like at the end, right, there were those 3 passed pawns versus a queen. If like let's say the black king like joined. This is just an ending question. I'll probably do right.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, being specific is much more important than where we have to calculate. So let's say if the position like this, let's say black just promoted, something like this. Move. Black's queen can't stop the pawn. Covers everything. That's why the queen is so much more powerful. And even if something like this is most likely you'll win, especially with the queen can try to check. Yeah. So again, it's the specifics we have to calculate, and that. But I think the first order of your question, just the king in the box concept. That's something that you can focus on. Okay, let's wrap it up, and then I'll stick around a little bit, just chat in general briefly. But yeah, thanks for everybody coming in, and hopefully you get some out of this. And yeah, I'll be happy to chat and just learn a little bit more of your interest, and then we'll figure out other opportunities in the future as well. All right, thanks guys.